Almighty God, our rock and our salvation, we beg you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon our fractured nation. Heal the divisions that separate us and remove all obstacles to authentic unity. May you guide this great country of ours and lead our citizens to embrace one another as neighbors and fellow countrymen, created in your own image and likeness. Give us a fresh opportunity for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our homeland. May we return to our true identity as a people of faith and charity. Help us to always remain one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay. I'd like to acknowledge all of our visitors for the first time. If you'd raise your hand. I know we have some in the back over here, some over here, and over here. I want to welcome you, and after the meeting is over, if you have any questions, please feel free to come up and ask me any questions about the organization or anything that we do. We'd love to have you back. The next meeting will be on the 17th, I think, of July, and we're going to have Diane Black here, who is a candidate for governor. Do we have any announcements from the audience? I think, Susan, you wanted to say something?
Next Thursday, the 28th, there's going to be a candidate forum featuring candidates running to replace Jimmy Duncan. It's going to be in Tellico Village at the Community Church at 4:30. Everybody's welcome. And also, immediately following at 6 o'clock, Tim Burchett is having a meet and greet at the Tellico Village Yacht Club. There's going to be hors d'oeuvres and good conversation and an opportunity to meet one of the candidates and ask him questions and get to know him better. So everyone is invited. If you need any more information, you can contact his campaign. Thank you.
Okay. John Peach is not able to be here. They do have the Afro-American meeting that will be at Rosary Canteen, June the 28th. It's 5:30 for dinner, 6:30 for the meeting, and also you can order off the menu like you do here. And John will be acting out as President Abraham Lincoln. You've seen him a few times here, so he'll be talking about what's going on with Abraham Lincoln at that meeting. Also, John is setting up he calls it the Peace Tour of Israel. It's about 10 days. It's supposedly in 4- and 5-star hotels. I've got the agenda here. We'll put a link on the minutes and also on our website about this, and it will be the 15th through the 24th of February next year. Seems like a really good tour, and it's set up very well. Good food and good accommodations. It will be a bus tour, and you stay in the hotels about 2 nights and then move on to a new hotel. Okay, Ray, would you like to go up and give us a little bit of education about the Constitution?
Okay, today I want to talk about tariffs. The whole issue of tariffs has been in the news lately. If you remember just last week, the people running for governor, that was one of the big questions they were asked. What do you think of President Trump's tariffs? And of course, as most of you know, President Trump signed an executive order back in March calling on the Commerce Department to impose a 25% tariff on steel imports and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports. And his reason, he said, some foreign countries' current trade practices with the United States are a threat to national security. Of course, the president's been getting grief from actually both parties, both Democrats and Republicans in They say it's a bad idea, and it'll hurt the economy, and it'll start trade wars, and bring on doomsday, and anything else you can imagine that's going to happen, okay, because you're imposing these tariffs. But you know what? No one ever says anything about whether or not the president has the authority to impose these tariffs. At least the major media. I mean, you can find it somewhere else. So that's the question. Does the president have the authority to impose tariffs like he's done? As always, we always go back to the source, our Constitution, to find out what the real answer is. And again, if you look at Article 1, Section 8, it's Congress that is given the power to, quote, lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. And then later on, it says Congress has the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, etc. That's what we call the Commerce Clause. So, it's pretty clear that it's Congress's responsibility. Now, last month I discussed how Congress, the courts, and the President are abusing the Commerce Clause in that they're regulating commerce within the states where they shouldn't really be doing it. Well, this is another abuse of the Commerce Clause, but not necessarily what you may think. Some people blame President Trump for an overreach of his power, but is that really the case? Actually, it's Congress's fault, and I'll tell you why. Over the past century, Congress has been slowly shifting many of the powers to raise and lower tariffs from themselves to the executive branch. In essence, Congress has abdicated their responsibility and given it over to the President. Okay? This, to me, and to most true constructionists of our Constitution, is an unconstitutional shift of power. And it's much like what I've talked about before, how Congress passes a law to establish some federal agency and gives them all this sweeping power, and they, in essence, make law when they write federal regulations. Again, Congress is shirking their duty and giving it over to someone else. And that's exactly what they've done with the tariff issue. So how have they done that? Well, and just give you a few examples. There are many ways that Congress has allowed the President now to impose tariffs without their own approval. And here are a few of them. The Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. Okay, under that act, the President can impose a tariff during the time of war. Well, that tariff doesn't necessarily have to be against the people we're at war with, but it just has to be a time of war. So that kind of gives them an out. It just has to generally apply somehow to the war effort. This is how Richard Nixon imposed a 10% tariff in 1971, citing the Korean War. Okay, the Trade Act of 1974 allows the President to implement a 15% tariff for 150 days if there's an adverse impact on national security from imports. Okay, after that 150 days, the trade policy needs to be approved by Congress, but it still allows the President to impose it. Now, there's also the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which allows the President to implement tariffs during a national emergency. Okay, and it's usually the President that declares when there's an emergency. In this specific case, President Trump's White House cited Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, a provision that gives the Secretary of Commerce the authority to investigate and determine the impact of any imports on the national security of the United States. Okay? And the President has the power to adjust tariffs accordingly. And that's exactly what happened. In this case, Trump's Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross conducted an investigation which Trump had ordered last April, a year ago, into the impacts of steel and aluminum imports. And that report was enough legal justification for Trump to bypass Congress and also the independent U.S. International Trade Commission, which is typically called on to weigh in on proposed tariffs. If you remember back in 2002, President Bush imposed steel tariffs as as temporary safeguards, but the U.S. International Trade Commission had oversight. But in this case, he didn't even think he needed oversight. So, to point a finger at President Trump and say, you're overstepping your bounds is really incorrect, because Congress has given him that authority. Although if he was really, true to the Constitution, he might say, well, you've given it to me, but I'm not going to take it because it's not constitutional. Anyway, so what has happened is Congress has given away their authority and responsibility to impose tariffs. And then they complain when the president uses the authority they've given them. And that's exactly what's happening now. So, it's a classic, blame shifting game. So Congress can not do their duties, but blame somebody else for other things when they shirk their duties. So what we need to do to restore a proper constitutional function concerning tariffs or anything else like this is Congress just needs to repeal all those laws and not give the president the authority, and they need to start doing their job and doing it themselves. And really, that's the way it should be done. And it's supposed to be just like the ability to wage war, tariffs and other duties like that is supposed to be on the Congress. Is a lot more heads are better than one, kind of thing. So, on a historical note also, are tariffs a bad thing? If you look back into the history of our country, basically tariffs served the key role in our national foreign trade policy from the beginning up until about 1913. What happened in 1913? The income tax, right? Okay. So actually federal revenues were the the primary source of federal revenues up until 1913 were tariffs. Right. Even up to as much as 95% of federal revenues came from tariffs. Okay, and that was the way it was, because really that was about the only way the federal government had of raising money, was through tariffs. So, of course, the politics involving that was always, somewhat, confrontational, because it depended on which side of the street you were on. In general, the Whigs and then the Republicans who represented more the industrial north of America wanted higher tariffs to protect the new fledgling industries coming up, whereas the Democrats, who represented mostly the South, they didn't have industry, and so tariffs basically raised taxes on goods, and so they were against them. But they all thought they were necessary. The Democrats were just saying, tariffs should be only as high as they need to be to pay for the needs of the federal government, whereas the Republicans were saying, no, they need to be a little bit higher to encourage our industry in the United States. So bottom line is tariffs were used a lot prior to 1913 when the income tax came. Of course, since the income tax have been steadily decreasing, so they're not a significant factor at all as far as federal revenues, and therefore they're not really a hot political topic, because there's no money there anymore. So are tariffs a bad thing? I don't think so. Just remember, a tariff is a tax, and like all taxes, when you impose a tax, it usually hurts somebody and helps somebody else. Okay, and so there's always going to be winners and losers, and like all taxes, they're ultimately paid by the consumer, not the corporations. Did the corporations pay taxes? No, not really. Yeah, they may be imposed on the corporations, but what do? They increase their prices on their goods and services to cover those taxes. So the consumers, in the bottom line, is the one who ends up paying any tax at all, no matter how you look at it. So it's just the politics of the game of who benefits and who loses and who's in power to control that. So. Anyway, back to my point, we need to get back to the Constitution again, where Congress is doing their duty and imposing taxes themselves. They're voting for it versus the president is doing it. Questions or comments? Yes.
Tony, I guess comment more than anything is, number one, how the heck are we ever going to get Congress to do their jobs?
That's
and I guess the other comment is reference to China.
against tariffs or trade wars and everything, but when other countries are doing it, personally, you know, I believe in what Trump is saying. Other countries are imposing tariffs on our goods over there, and if we impose tariffs, it just kind of balances the playing field. Where when we put out tariffs now, then people start screaming bloody murder because we haven't been doing it.
What is fair and what isn't fair?
You know, fair is so subjective. You can't, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder.
So it's more a comment than a question, but I can't help but notice the growth in the size of government since the imposition of the income tax. And I mean, the tariffs were sort of originally designed to keep government small, also because it limited the overall total amount of money revenue that the government could take in. So I think there's a direct relationship between the income tax and the growth of the size of the government.
Absolutely. In fact, I gave a talk maybe 2 or 3 years ago on that very thing. And prior to 1913, the average federal expenditures were 2% of the GDP. You know, it was almost constant. You know, there's a few ups and downs during the wars and stuff, but basically it was almost a constant 2%. As the income tax took over, it started going up drastically, down to the point where over 25% of GDP goes to federal revenues. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, we have one more guest, but he's not here yet. Apparently he's stuck in traffic someplace, so he was supposed to be here by now. So what I'm going to do is, normally we do a collection, and it's for the Tea Party. We use it for all kinds of things, for our website. We do support some of our speakers if they're coming out of town. We do give them a stipend for that. And also some advertisements. You can be doing printing and buying some books that we have for free out there. So Katie, would you pass the bucket around, and if you've given out in the glass jar out there, that money is in there. And so I would appreciate any help you guys might get. And so our other speaker, who is from the Americans for Prosperity, will be showing up, and we'll let him talk at the end of the meeting. He's a new representative for that organization. So now what we're going to do is introduce our candidates one at a time in alphabetical order, and let them speak for about 10 minutes. And then looks like our guest speakers, the other speaker is here. So it's Josh Framington. He's new from Prosperity. I'll let him talk and tell a little bit about himself.
Thank you very much. I started a bit late. Didn't realize the North City was so far away from where I was at. But my name is Josh Brampton. I'm the relatively new field director for Americans for Prosperity here in Knoxville, Tennessee. How's it going, Greg? I see him there. I took over Greg's old job. So those of you who know Greg, I'm doing the job he was doing before me. So for those of you who do not know, Americans for Prosperity is a national political organization that focuses on free market issues, economic issues, tax-related stuff, helping all Americans live more free and prosperous lives. That's our mission. So just wanted to come here today to really just introduce myself. I have business cards. I'd love to meet each and every one of you. I also wanted to promote an event I'm having tomorrow. For those of you who would like to come out, learn more about Americans for Prosperity, what we do. I'm hosting what we like to call an Insight to Action, having a trainer come down from DC to talk about the horrors of economic development relating to corporate welfare. It's called Hoodwinked and Bamboozled. I have the flyers here with me. If any of you are interested, please see me after the meeting, and I'd be happy to get you more information on that. And love to meet you. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we can introduce our candidates. The way it works around here, we have to go with the flow. Okay, so what we're going to do is allow each one of the candidates to speak for about 10 minutes. And then after that, what we're going to do is get all three of them up. We haven't done have everybody answer the questions. So we'll get all three of them up, and then you'll be able to ask questions at that time. And we'll rotate who gets the questions first, and then we'll go through and let each one of them answer the question. So you get a feel for what each one of them thinks about that one particular item. So we'll start off with Bill O'Rourke, and we'll let him talk about himself and why he would like the position.
Thank you, Al. First of all, let me thank you all for inviting us candidates out here tonight to share our views and viewpoints on what we think the legislature should do or shouldn't do. I guess would be a more realistic question than probably should. First of all, I'd like to introduce my wife, Kay, and this is Kay sitting right here, my son Ronnie, and his son, and his wife Sharon, my daughter Rebecca, her husband Bobby, Marty, and Alex. The other son is home with a wife, 2-year-old, and one about to be born. The other son is in Florida on vacation where all of us would be, and the other son is working tonight. So we've got a large family, and we're proud of them, and that's just what we're all about, is kids and grandkids. I have been around Loudoun County all my life. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I still live on the farm I was born on. A lot of people kind of look at me a little strange, but back in those days, very few kids were born in hospitals, and that was the way it was. I got into politics by timely work that happened back in '76. The county voted to have an elected school board, and our commissioners didn't want to have that particular thing, and some people said something to me about running for county commission, and I had a business there in Loudoun, so I decided that I would run for county commission. And that's when we had an elected school board prior to the state passing the law that all people had to be elected to be on the school board. So we got that done in '78 and '79, and in 1980 the school board started being elected. I was there for a couple of years and then to property assessor just because I had a tool and die business that was tied into the automotive industry, and it was tanking, and I was looking for something else to do. Some people talked me into running for property assessor, and I ran for that and stayed there for 26 years, then moved on to county mayor for 4 years and then retired. When Mr. Matlock decided that he wasn't going to run again, I had previously talked to him back in 2011. He was thinking about getting out. And I went into Monroe County and talked to some people down there about running, and Jimmy decided to stay in, and I supported him through that endeavor. And when he decided to get out this time, I thought, well, maybe I've got one more spin left, and let's give it a whirl and see what we can do. That's my political background. I am a strong advocate for victims' rights. We had a son that was murdered in 1992, and when we went to trial for the thugs that did it, my son was on trial instead of the people that was being tried. Luckily, we got a little bit of a conviction. They are now out. We've been notified. They hadn't been in prison probably 2 years until we started having to go down for probation hearings. So I'm a real strong advocate on that part of life. And I hope none of you ever have to go through that. But trust me, the system is geared for people to commit crimes. We furnish them lawyers, we furnish them a nice place to stay, and we feed them 3 meals a day so they get back out and do the club business that they were doing before they ever got there. So I won't depend on that just because of where I've been and what I've been through. We recently got broke into, got cleaned out back on the 12th of December. The guy was a neighbor, lived within a mile and a half of where he was at. He's a thug, he's a dopehead, 23-year-old, you can't fix it. He gets out, gets back in trouble again. Luckily, we've got him locked up now until he goes to the grand jury and all this, and we'll get a trial on that. But every time we go with the system, our taxpayer dollars are paying for all this luxury that these people have of getting defended and that stuff. So I'm real strong on victims' rights, whether it's being broke into, murder, or whatever it's about. I am a strong pro-life supporter and Second Amendment guy. And I think all three of these, and all going to speak for Lowell, when you put all three of us in the same sack for those two things, that's what we're going to be about. It doesn't make any difference what it is. If you're going to run on the Republican ticket, you've got to be folks lined up on that. I was born for that type of stuff, and I'm going to do that type of stuff if they carry me. I have one thing that Tony has kids, Laurel's never been married, but I'm real strong on education down in the lower grade levels. If we do not teach these kids to read and write by the time they go through the 3rd grade, you talk to any educators out here, and I've talked to several of them. My daughter's an educator, my daughter-in-law is an educator in the systems. Those kids get lost for life. If you don't think they're lost, you go to a fast food restaurant and try to give one of them a little extra change on the side when you get back a real dollar bill, they can't figure it out because the computer didn't tell them what to do. So I really think that what we need to do, if we're going to fix the system, we can't fix it with Tennessee Promise and Drive 55. Those kids that need that stuff can't get there. They just can't get there because they weren't taught down in the early grades on what they needed to do to strive and meet that. I think that what we basically need to do is look at the funding that we're putting into education, strip some of that from that higher earned. You can't touch the lottery because that money is set up a certain way to be spent. But the other money that the legislature is providing, it needs to be plowed back down into the lower grades where we can give those kids, if it's less teacher pupil ratio, whatever it takes to get it done. And I'm amazed that somebody hadn't tried to come up with that and so forth. We have a pamphlet here tonight that lists all of my charitable and civic organizations that I've been involved in throughout life. I'm proud of those things that we have done. The one thing that I would ask you to do is to look at all three candidates, choose the best candidate that you think will do the best job of the position. That's my platform, and that's where I stand. Thank you this evening.
Okay, now we have Sheriff Tony Aiken that would like to tell us a little bit about himself and his county.
Thank you, Colonel, and I'm sure Tim Guy will be happy to know that I've been promoted to sheriff now. Mayor. But, so I'll be sure and tell him.
You don't worry. Well, I see that star on your shoulder.
That's okay. For those of you who don't know me, Wayne was closed. I'm retired from the sheriff's office after 26 years, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment. As the chief deputy, working for Sheriff Gatto, and I've been in law enforcement for 39 years, and retired. My wife passed away a few years ago, and became full-time mayor of Lenore City. Some of the accomplishments in Lenore City you hadn't noticed, and I'm going to talk about this first because it seems like it's on everybody's mind, is the road project. And trust me, it's painful to us too. I come to it numerous times a day, and I was telling a couple over here earlier that it's an 18-month project. It's we like about 14 more months, so it's going to continue to be painful before it gets better, but you're going to like it after it's done, I can assure you. We actually, Mr. Schroeder and Representative Matlock was down today along with some other elected officials, and we cut the ribbon for the new bridge over across 321, as you all know, and may have seen it over there and seen us over there today. But anyhow, it's a road project in Lenore City. It's a very involved, very in-depth project dealing with state and federal funds, but we'll be glad when it's finished. A couple other things that I'm very proud of is the since being mayor since 2010 is the event center. If you've not visited the event center, I would encourage you to do so. It's a $7 million facility. It was built without raising taxes. The tax rate in Lenore City is 99 cents. We are the lowest in the county. And we have not had a tax increase since I've been mayor, nor since I was on city council. I went on city council in 2003, was mayor till I was on city council. Got back to 2003, stayed there until 2010 when I was elected mayor of Lenore City, and I've never voted for a tax increase. I don't think I would be fiscally responsible if I said I was never going to short-land someone off. I don't foresee any tax increase. I can tell you that we had first reading of the budget last week, and the taxes in Lenore City is going to remain 99 cents for the year 1819. So very proud of that. Another accomplishment is the state-of-the-art utility building. It was built without raising utility rates, and we don't. Again, we met yesterday at the utility board meeting, and those rates are remaining the same. So that's something else we're proud of. We really needed a new utility building. We were so desperately behind. Lenore City Utilities, we have 100,000 customers, and it takes in part of West Knox County. And we was actually, you just wouldn't believe, when the power would go out in West Knoxville, or anywhere as far as that goes, we would have 20 people stuck in a very small room and writing things down on a notepad and voting tables, putting the notes out on voting tables. That's not any way to operate in the 21st century. So when I took over as mayor, that's one thing I asked the general manager to do, was get us in the 21st century, and I think we're there. We've got some exciting things coming about that's going to increase revenues, Lenore City Utilities, and we're proud of it. Another project is, of course, the downtown project. That all the road work that's going on down there, cutting the sidewalks back and making it more pedestrian friendly. New businesses moving into downtown. If you've gone through there recently, you'll see a lot of the buildings being renovated by the owners, and the city has worked with those owners to try to help them out financially from a financial standpoint, and we've been very successful. We renovated the War Memorial Building. That building was built for the veterans in the 1950s. It hadn't had anything done to it with the exception of some ADA issues. And we've spent $1 million down there. We've done it without raising taxes. So let me, and that's just a brief few things that Lenore City government has done in the last several years. And I didn't do that alone. We've done it as a team. One of the things that I promised Lenore City Council when I got elected, we was going to run Lenore City government together, and we was going to run it as a team. We're better together, and that's something that we've succeeded in doing, and we continue to do so, and we're very proud of that. One of the things I want to touch base just briefly on, because there may be some questions about it, and I've heard some people here talk about it, so I want to, not tonight, but in passing, and I want to touch on it for just a moment. If you'll allow me to do so, look at some notes, because I want want to tell you what some things stand for, and I don't want to get it wrong. It's the stormwater utility fee. Last year, we passed a stormwater utility fee, and we was mandated by the federal government. You know, I was a police chief in 1989, and we had a gentleman there that was mayor, and he liked sometimes to intervene and maybe micromanage at times, and he was my friend when he passed away. But I tried not to do that in Lenore City government. I tried to let these department heads run their own business. And I have people that works for me that comes to me and tells me things we need to do, and sometimes I follow their advice and sometimes I don't. But they know better than I, because they're there working in every day. So my wastewater quality man came to me. His name is Greg Buckner, and he said, "Look, we're under a mandate, and we need to figure out a way. We need to be aggressive and figure out a way to pay for this. We have been paying for it out of reserves, about $600,000 a year. We have been absorbing that cost." So the federal government, it was a mandate that the EPA's National Pollution Discharge and Elimination System, or Phase 1 or 2, and of course Lenore City is the Phase 2, falls under Phase 2 of the municipal separate stormwater system. What does it do? It improves water quality. We are supposed to publicly educate. It increases the maintenance or repairs of the stormwater system. Develops or design stormwater standards and regulations. We conduct field inspections and enforcement, and construct or identify drainage projects. One of the things he explained to me that really brought it home: how many people in this room, how many people in the room smoke? Does anybody smoke in here? Anybody? Good. I don't either. Look at, and you can't sit down because of all the construction, but look, the next time you pull up to an intersection, I always was amazed coming off 321, Bill, I'm sure you've seen it too, coming off 321 there at the intersection of 11, and all the cigarette butts laying there up against the curb. Or seeing people at Walmart or Eagles, and a piece of paper accidentally falls out onto the ground. And they may pick that paper up. Y'all may pick that paper up, or I may pick it up if it's in my yard. But they're not going to pick it up most of the time if it falls out on the ground, if it's in a parking lot. They're going to continue on, go out and do the business, whether it be a piece of chewing-gum paper or a napkin or whatever. I've done it, so I know. But when you really think about it, and that trash goes into the stormwater system, that's what we're talking about. And it's going to get worse. Other towns are going to be coming under the same guidelines. Loudon City has not come under those guidelines yet, but they will. And I'm going to read this to you, and just to let you know where we're at. So Lenore City's rate is $3 for residential. And the commercial rate is a 3-tier system based on the footage. Most, about 80%, is $50 or less. Alcoa is $4 residential. Maryville is $4 to $12 residential. Commercial is $6. The multi-dwelling units in Maryville is $4. Cleveland is $3.25 to $5. Chattanooga, who by the way was $5 $635,500 for not following the guidelines. So Chattanooga was $115.20. Commercial $73.80 per square footage. Spring Hill 50, Murfreesboro 3 1/4, Johnson City 3, Kingsport 350, Laverne 350, Morristown 3. So I felt like it was important that Lenore City not continue down the path and not be aggressive when they came to me and asked me to look at it and say we need to get in compliance and we need to follow the guidelines and we need to start paying for our stormwater system. So again, I know there are some concerns about that, and I'll be happy to take questions or talk to you individually. But I wanted you to know that and know where I stood. But when you look at the and my time may be up, Colonel, so you tell me if it is. I'll shut up. But when you look at the $3 stormwater utility fee, please look at everything that's been accomplished in Lenore City government since 2010, and we hadn't raised utility rates and we hadn't raised property tax. 99 cents now. And we've done all those things. And I failed to mention the new City Hall building that we're in. That was purchased, a 22,000 square feet building that was purchased for $620,000. We spent about $1.5 million on it. And we did that without raising property tax. And it's about a $5 million piece of property, just the property alone. So I ask you to look at the big picture, look at the experience that you'll be sending to Nashville. I could go on and on and on. I want to touch base on one more thing if I have enough time to do it. You may have heard about the sales tax that's been talked about for school security. I firmly believe that we need to protect our children in Lenore City and Loudoun County and throughout this country. I think that the Lenore City school system needs more officers and more counseling into our school system. We need to be looking at these kids before something happens, not after. We need more counselors in schools, and we need more police officers to be a deterrent in our school system. Currently, Lenore City has 3 SRO officers. We need 5. Now we won't pay for it. That's about $70,000 per officer. The Lenore City school system, I formed a task force, and we met with administrators of the Lenore City school system, along with some kids. We brought some children in that meeting. And we came up with what we believe will be a deterrent, and hopefully nothing like that will happen in the Lenore City or Loudoun County schools, Monroe County schools, or anywhere else in this country. But chances are, one of these days, it's going to happen somewhere else again. And we need to be aggressive, and we need to be prepared to deal with it. And we need to have officers in schools to act as a deterrent and to help prevent casualties. But it comes with a price. I've asked the Lenore City Council and Dr. Barker, the superintendent of the Lenore City Schools, to look at every alternative. We came up with an alternative of letting the voters, not us, but letting the voters decide if we're going to have a sales tax referendum. Now, that's not been decided yet. We're going to have that's been talked about in the workshop. And we're going to have a joint meeting with the Lenore City School System and the Lenore City Council next week, the first meeting. counseling and the officers. We talked about some upgraded doors, some electronic doors, some fencing there at the Roanoke City High School campus. And so I would encourage you to come to that meeting. And let me just tell you when it is real quick, and then I'll sit down and be quiet. It is on the 26th at 5:30 at Roanoke City Hall. And I'll be controlling the meeting, and I'll let anyone speak who wants to speak. I would ask you to keep your comments to 10 minutes or so, but anybody who wants to come, I would encourage you to do so. I would appreciate your vote. I think I have the experience to go to Nashville, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more candidate, and that's Lowell Russell. He is not going to be here tonight. He has a sinus infection and running a fever, not feeling real good. So we have a stand-in. Paul Grady will be coming, his right-hand man, and he'll be talking a little bit about Lowell, and then we'll start the questions and answers.
Last time I was in this position, a few months ago, I'm a minister, I'm not a pastor or anything, but the pastor was out sick, the assistant pastor was gone, and the music director was gone, so we had a second string. I told the church that day we had a second string song director and a third-rate preacher, so I'm the third speaker tonight, so I don't know what that says about me, but Lowell did want me to tell you that he's very sorry that he could not be here. He was very upset about this. I didn't get a chance to talk to him much today because I was at work in the daytime, and he was sleeping. They had to give him 2 shots. He was running a bad fever. He could hardly talk, so we just hopefully pray for him and he can get back on his feet soon. He's really been passionate about his process here running for the state rep for District 21. He did want to make a couple of just little commercials. We do have some of his little bio cards. If you want some, TJ, if you raise your hand over here. TJ's got some over here. We can get some more to you. And also, if you are wanting a yard sign or anything, she also has yard signs and can get one to you. But again, very sorry that he couldn't be here. If I could just take a couple minutes. Again, I'm not the one running for office. I'm not a politician. I'm just supporting my friend. Lowell and I have a very special friendship that was forged through fiery trials, literally. And I'll come back to that phrase here in just a minute. But I worked as a chaplain also for Tennessee Highway Patrol. And in 2011, I actually got my first dispatch from Highway Patrol. And that was to go down to Bonhor and meet with Sergeant Russell, a young man that he had raised, kind of looks like his own son. Frankie Watson had been killed in Afghanistan by a sniper. And the Marine Corps had just come and delivered the death notification. They wanted us to go represent spiritual side from Highway Patrol. That was the first time I met Lowell. We developed a good friendship through that. We worked some pretty tough calls together, doing some death notifications, things like that. Some tragic calls, and even in those situations, those would also kind of bond you together a little better. But the next time, I'm in law enforcement as well, and I was going to say, you've been in law enforcement 1 year longer than I've been alive, not to feel old, but in just the 6 years I've been in law enforcement, I've already put 3 of my friends in the ground, so I appreciate law enforcement. I carry Kenny Moats with me everywhere I go. I was one of the officers on the scene for his tragic shooting. But I'll tell you, when I got the call, I was in finals week of academy. When you're supposed to be focused on your studies and making sure you got your push-ups and your mile and a half down, all those kind of things, I got the call at 3 o'clock in the morning that Lowell had been in a tragic accident where he'd been hit by a tractor trailer. Wasn't expected to make it, and I needed to go to the hospital to be with the troopers and the officers. And I knew all the officers that responded because I was also a chaplain for Knoxville Police Department. And I remember hopping in my little car, driving as fast as I could to UT Hospital. I was crying, saying, God, I'm supposed to be encouraging these guys. I don't even know how I feel about this situation. What am I supposed to do? And long story short, over the next 14 days, I watched my friend fighting for his life. But by the miracles of God, he did prevail and he pulled through. Chief Rouse, who's now going to be our new TBI director, was quoted as saying it was divine providence because there was an ambulance that just happened to be following the semi that hit Lowell's car. And 2 officers that were already en route to go back him up on his traffic stop that were literally able to pull up on scene. And a man with a box cutter cut his seatbelt off, had just left the Sam's Club right in front of where the accident happened on I-40. Divine providence. I don't think it was by any accident that those things happened to Lowell, because he's always had a servant's heart. I've known him, not known him his whole life, but I've known him for about 7 years now, and I count him a dear friend. That's why I'm happy to help in this campaign. I'm not a politician. I'm not even the right-hand man. I'm actually the 3rd string. I'm the communications director and a vice chair. Now, I don't know what that means, but it means, I guess if I went down to Miami, I'd have a vice chair, right? But I guess you'll all get that. But Lowell has always had a servant's heart. And when he lost the ability to crawl back into cruiser, he's wanted to have the opportunity to serve still. And when this opportunity arose, he threw his hat in the ring with Lowell and Tony and decided to give his shot at it. And he really, I promise you, I've watched him work. I've door knocked with him. I've worked on the campaign with him and putting signs out, all kinds of things. And he will, if he works as hard for you as he has in this campaign, you'll have something that will work hard for you in Nashville. Come this, I guess, January, when he will take his position. But even as a child, he's always had a heart of gold. As a child, he was asked, he had a little book his mom gave him, of all things, it said Lowell School Days on it. And it lets you put in there what you wanted to be as a child. And he said he wanted to be an astronaut, a race car driver, or a police officer. And he got a pilot's license, so that's close enough to astronaut. Race car driver, he became a police officer. You get to drive fast, right? And then he did become a police officer, working for Monroe County Sheriff's Office and the Tennessee Highway Patrol. So since you can't be here now, for those of you who don't know or have never met him, I'm trying to give you a little bit of background on who Lowell is. And so now he's working on the next phase of his life. And in 2014, I approached him about writing a book called Trial by Fire, his biography about his story. Because he both went through a literal and a spiritual or allegorical fire when that car crash happened. That semi hit him, a fully loaded tractor trailer hit him at 69 miles an hour, and his car burst into flames, broke his body in multiple locations. He survived all that. But that was another step in our friendship writing that book together. And I believe just things that God lets everything happen in our lives for a purpose, and I believe each step has prepared us for the next of it. And this opportunity for the state representative position, I believe, is the next step in Lowell's life. I strongly believe that. Now, just real quick, if you have not had a chance to look at his website, lowellrussell.com, or if you've not met with him or gotten one of his cards or anything like that, just to give you a brief overview of his platform that he is running on. It's pretty simple. It's 3 major points with a couple little sub-points. First one's public safety, and I think that would come as no shock or no surprise to anybody here, being that he was a law enforcement officer for 20 years before his wreck. That public safety is very important to him. And although, like I said, he can't crawl back into a cruiser today, that still remains a priority for him in his campaign. So he wants to be able to do things to help first responders, paramedics, EMT, firefighters, law enforcement have the tools available to them that they need, and where the state can help on those things, definitely to do so. And of course, everybody knows the opioid epidemic that's going on right now. I just went through my in service a few weeks ago, and one of the men from Narcan, one of the 2 companies, Narcan and Watson, are the main companies that put the opioid suppressors out we carry now that can help people come out of an overdose. Said, of course, this you've heard on the news, around 60,000 deaths a year would easily, and we got a nurse back here, to tell you it would easily be about 500 to 600,000 deaths a year. If you do the math, it will take about 5 or 6 years for basically the population of the state of Tennessee to be dead if we don't do anything. So get to Nashville, we got some work ahead of us to work through that process. Economy, of course, we've heard Bill talk about teachers and education, very important. I was raised old school. I learned cursive when I was 6 years old. Not just writing, but I could write my name in cursive at 6 years old. Well, that sounds impressive. You think of John Jay, the first U.S. Supreme Court Justice, and he can read Greek and Hebrew at age 5 and write Greek at age 6. So we're not as impressive as we think we are nowadays, right? Because we can Twitter and tweet and tweet or whatever it is we do. So we have a long way to go, but definitely have a strong position to help our teachers in schools. And that comes under economy. The reason why law puts that under economy is because the future of our economy, the future of our workforce is our children that are in school now. One day we're going to retire or more are retired. We've got to be looking at those future generations, preparing them, giving them the best tools possible. America used to lead in every category. Now we're way down on the list on science and math and all these different topics, and we want to get back to those things. SBA, the Small Business Association of Lowell, has his own business now, and he's a successful entrepreneur and owned another company that he sold. It's still a successful company, and loves small businesses, and will do what he can to help small businesses. And I have to say I'm thankful for a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years. We get a lot of regulation rolled back from the federal level. We'd like to see some of those things done at the local level as well. And of course, low taxes. I think everybody here likes low taxes. We don't. If we could get away with no taxes, we would. But even as God said, "Render to Caesar things which are Caesar's," sometimes things such as taxes are an evil necessity. You have to have them, but keep our taxes as low as possible. And then lastly, is small government. A limited government is where we're supposed to be. The purpose of the government is to help the people when it can't help themselves, not to run their lives. So we believe in a limited government. And of course, as Lowell Tony said, Second Amendment all the way, pro-life all the way. Those are kind of no-brainers, I think, if you're in this room. And also, lastly, Lowell does have some meet and greets here in Loudoun County coming up in July. If you've not been able to get to the ones we had in Monroe County in the last few months, we'll have some coming up. If you get on this page and like this page, Lowell Russell for State Rep, we'll make some announcements there. Maybe try and get some things in the newspapers. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we're going to come up, and what we're going to do is we'll start off, like I said, with the candidate, Joe Laura. He'll get the first question, and each one of them will get a chance to respond. Who's got a question?
Everybody talks about improving education, and of course everybody wants to do that, but the question is how. Okay, in my opinion, the people most responsible for a child's education are the parents, not the state. Would you let me know if you agree with that statement or not? And if so, what would you do or try to do as a state rep to give parents more authority in education? Here you go.
Well, I totally agree with you. What we expect a teacher to do in 6 hours when a parent has them the rest of the time and on the weekends. And most of those kids that are falling through the cracks don't have that parent. So it can't be fixed overnight. You couldn't pour enough money into it and fix it overnight. But we have to get back to where the families are raising the children or the grandparents are raising the children and put more discipline back into the schools to where the kid knows when he gets in trouble, he's in trouble. Because most kids nowadays don't care because of the home life that they live. And you may agree with me, you may not agree with me. But we cannot pour enough money into it to fix it. It has to come from the parents, but I don't know how you get a parent that doesn't care about their child to care about education. It's one of those old adage. Most of us at work are paying for about 70% of them that don't work.
I can definitely say, me personally, I agree with that. I was both in regular school and I was also homeschooled, so my parents did take that responsibility. As far as for Lowell, I guess is how I really truly try and answer these questions. And I may not be able to give satisfactory answers on every question because it's not my position to create the policy of the campaign. I try to make sure Lowell gets pointed in the right direction, just like the scene from It's a Wonderful Life, and you're trying to walk home, I hit the trash can. So that's about all I'm doing. So if I can't answer a good solid question, that's again one reason why Lowell wanted you to know about the meet and greets. You can come and speak with him personally. He's better. He should be hopefully on his feet the next couple of days. But as far as education, Lowell flunked the 2nd grade. Think about what Lowell said back before the 3rd grade. And almost flunked the 8th grade growing up. And part of the reason Lowell's told me that he feels that happened was because where he was going to school those times, by the way, all those schools are shut down that he was going to. They're not in existence anymore. He felt like the teacher, like he was just in a cattle chute, getting pushed from one location next. There was no personal interest in the student. And really struggled. But when his life started turning around, was when he had a teacher that took an interest in him and showed him that he could do it if he put some effort into it and put some of the responsibility back on the child. And definitely, you don't have parents at home that are backing the teachers. You're at a loss. My wife's a school teacher, and the best students that you have are the parents that are engaged. The worst students you have are the parents that are making excuses for their children and looking for reasons that everything is everybody else's fault. So you definitely have the backing at home. It definitely will start there in getting a better education for our children at home.
Not to agree with the two gentlemen, and you know, we have to start at home. It's so important. I've been out on those calls, and and yeah, I've seen it get worse and worse, and I know Paul has too, maybe, and Doyle with the educators and his family. We have to get parents more involved and to try to teach the kids right from wrong, and it all starts at home. And I don't think that's what's being done right now. And it's I've been very fortunate with my two kids, and they've stayed out of trouble and grown up to be well young ladies and like their mother, and very proud of them, and we're very much involved in their education, and it starts at home.
Got a question over here?
This may sound like a foolish question, but I want to ask each one of you, why do you want to be a state representative? And I don't want to hear a political point of view. I want to hear something from your hearts. Really, why?
I guess I'll go first. You know, John, I've been in public service. I was served in law enforcement for 39 years, was on city council. I got elected in 2003. I like helping people. And I like, there's good people out there that has things unimportant, that runs into misfortunes. And I think I can help solve those issues, and I think I can help. I firmly believe, I heard someone say the other day about one of the governor candidates that they don't believe that a business person should be running government. I disagree with that. I think we need more business people running government. As a business person myself, I know I have to watch my budget, and I think government needs to watch their budget. And in Little City government, we watch our budget, and it's been proven that we watch it. So, like helping people, I want to keep government spending under control, and I think that with my experience, I can do a good job in that.
This would also kind of go back to what I've done with Lowell over the last few years, going back to when we wrote the book. One of the themes that's in the book is to not be just, don't be a victim. Most training, self-help conferences you can go to now today will tell you about don't just be a victim, don't be a victim, be a survivor. And that's okay, that's a good place to start. But you don't just be a victim, you don't be a survivor, be a thriver. And Lowell, when he came out of his wreck, he could have said, oh man, I'm broken, I'm messed up, I'm going to be on unemployment the rest of my life and just kick back and take it easy. But he went to that next stage, he went to survivor. He said, no, I'm going to push through this, I'm going to get back on my feet. He had to re-qualify to get his pilot's license recertified because the severe damage had been done to his body. But he didn't stop there. He said, I can't get back into a cruiser, but I have a heart for public service. I'll tell you right now, if Wolf had not had his record, we probably wouldn't be standing here today having this discussion. He'd be with the Highway Patrol right now because he loved working for the Highway Patrol. It was his heart. He wanted to do it from a young age, and when the opportunity arose, he jumped on it. But with today being that he can't do that, he still had a desire for public service. And again, like I said, when this opportunity opened up, he said, this is my thriver moment. Victim, survivor, thriver. He feels like this is his next opportunity, this is the next step in life God has for him to try. We don't know the outcome. He may be the winner, he may not be the winner. But you don't know until you put that foot out in faith. that's kind of my role, I believe, wanting to be the next representative.